go, 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 go. That's the birthday. That's the birthday. It's a serious problem, the likes of which we've never had. You know, when I was growing up, we had LSD, a hell of cocaine, because I grew up in the 80s, because I'm Donald Trump. And I don't drink, but I will snort cocaine directly off of a hooker. Drugs are bad, okay? Tom Heineberg, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about the opioid crisis. It's going to be huge, okay? It's a state of emergency. I've declared it the best state of emergency. Everybody knows. I declare the best emergencies.
Tadcam. Drugs are bad, okay? I see it. I give Narcan. People are dying, okay? So maybe they should declare a state of emergency. And that's exactly what Emperor Trump did today. It was astounding. After saying that he didn't think it needed to be done, he's now doing it. It is a national emergency from Captain Hindsight. I'm a little biased about this thing. If you guys have read the news today, we've linked to the article. Donald Trump is now saying that the opioid crisis is a national emergency.
Shut up! What? Who saw this coming? Since when?
Tadcam. Tad saw it coming. Okay? Tad and our emergency responders nationally have seen this thing coming for years. Guess who else saw it coming? Anyone working in an emergency department, okay? Anybody knowing someone with addiction, which is pretty much everybody. Pretty much anybody with half a brain said, wait a minute, pharma wants us to do more OxyContin because pain is like bad, okay? And we're going to teach doctors that pain is the fifth vital sign and enforce it on nursing so that we don't get paid unless we kiss everybody's butt by giving them narcotics. And then people like Tom end up with bags and bags of Lortab for no good reason, overdosing everywhere with Narcan now, the price of Narcan skyrocketing. And just now we're going, wait a minute, is this an emergency? So the Surgeon General, the previous Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, has been talking about this for a long time. He sent out a letter to all doctors around the country saying we need to consider carefully how we prescribe narcotics, not ignoring people who are in real pain, but thinking about this. But now the bully pulpit of the presidency is directly involved, opening potentially the door for some softening of regulations around how states and municipalities can actually deal with the opioid crisis on the ground. That may well be a good thing. It might open the door for some more funding. But this problem is probably not one that's necessarily going to directly respond to just throwing a shit ton of money at it. For example, the drug war, epic fail? What do you guys think?
See, we need to be We need to be doubling down on the drug war. This is a terrible Trump voice.
That is an amazing Trump icon, though. The Chinese love Donald. Look at that. Like, that's made out of love.
It's my lawn ornament, Z.
That's your lawn ornament? That's perfect. I have a garden gnome.
So it seems to me that Trump's plan is basically to just double down on all the misguided policies of the Reagan era.
We're making America great again, Tom.
You know
Heineberg.
what? America, see, if you understand Trump's rhetoric, America was great at one point, Tom. That was the Reagan era.
Damn straight.
Actually, it wasn't. Well, was it? Because Trump was huge in the 80s. Huge. So maybe that is what it is. Let's think about this carefully, though, because we just don't want to mindlessly attack our commander-in-chief, because at least one of the three of us really loves him. And
Commander-in-chief.
Trump train!
Yep. And so let's just think, can this be a helpful thing? Is it harmful? Let's start with a few comments. Epic, epic, epic fail, says Kendra Mason, RN, and we're talking about the drug war. So this is my strong belief from grounded in experience on the front lines, is that the drug war has failed as an entity. Actually criminalizing drugs and attacking it that way was bad. Now, the opioid crisis is a different thing. I actually don't think this has directly to do with the drug war. This has to do with what we have created as a society, as a legal system, and as a healthcare system. The healthcare industrial complex combined with cultural expectations for zero pain and a pill to cure what people are looking for is emotional pain to be healed. And narcotics actually, they do that. They do numb emotional pain. In fact, there was a study not very long ago that said even Tylenol can numb psychic pain to some degree. So yes, we all want some pill to take away our pain, and we want our pain recognized and witnessed, and we want someone to make it better. Unfortunately, it's gone to the extreme where now people are dying in epidemic numbers. Nobody denies that this is a crisis. It took the President of the United States now to say, yeah, it's kind of an emergency. Well, this is an emergency that's been decades in the building. We've all created it together. We all need to take responsibility for it, but we need to, more importantly, move forward into actual actionable plans. So it's one thing to call something an emergency, but what the fuck does that mean if we're not going to do anything with it, right? What do you think?
Danielle says, regardless of what you think of him, you need to be able to admit when he does something good for Americans overall. Yeah, this is just a proclamation he made, and then he's going to double down on all these wrong-headed policies. So, and I'm conservative, but Trump's a moron. I mean, straight up.
How dare you?
So you know, it's funny. I've actually come around a little bit on Trump's style. Like before the election, and I'm no fan of Hillary Clinton, but before the election, I was like, dude, we cannot elect this guy. He's insane. He's absolutely insane. He's a dictator. We're all going to die. And now I'm like, no, he's just Donald Trump, and he does things his way. And look, if he can use a bully pulpit, one thing about him is he's tremendously persuasive. He persuaded half the country, or a little less than half the country, to vote for him. And he's been very persuasive in business and that sort of thing. If he can use that pulpit to do something about the opioid crisis, whether it's even just mobilizing action or understanding that something is going to be done, that it is a priority, that's actually the bully pulpit of the presidency used to good purpose. So I'll actually defend him on that. You can disagree with me, and you should probably.
Stephanie Yunker says, America's pain is a 10 of 10.
America's pain is a 10 out of 10. That's a fucking bumper sticker right there, isn't it?
Hey Z, you know what Hillary Clinton is?
Here we go. What?
Nobody's president.
Oh!
Damn, she's also a murderer. Anyway, Patty Higgins says, action plan. Go ahead, I'm listening. What's your
Okay, so here's the action
plan.
plan. First off, we need to start at the front line levels where people are actually prescribing these drugs. Now, the chronic pain people are going to get extremely butthurt by what I'm about to say, but we need to actually have provisions for people with existing chronic pain. We do not cut off narcotics from people who are addicted to them, because that will cause hella heroin use, which will cause hella death, which we actually see, all right? So what we need to do is we need to get very tough on how we actually prescribe these drugs. We need to crack down as actually, and again, I'm going to give a shout out to people I don't normally like, Jeff Sessions. Drugs are bad, okay? Marijuana is bad, okay? Jeff, that's just dumb. That war on drugs thing has never worked. However, what did work potentially is cracking down on the shit ton of docs who were behaving as pill mills, including the PAs and nurse practitioners, the other people who were in that pantheon. And what he had, they did a sting and arrested like 450 of them. We did a show on this. That's a start, okay, because it's going to put the fear of God into frontline practitioners that they should be really careful about inappropriate opioid prescriptions while taking care of appropriate prescriptions. So it's tough. Second thing we need to do is address at the front lines in the emergency department. And here's the thing. You fix the opioid problem in America, you are going to fix about 40% of what's wrong in the emergency departments in America, because so much time, money, effort, and burnout potential comes from emergency staff trying to figure out whether someone is full of shit complaining of pain, or whether they are just suffering from addiction to narcotics and are doing what any addicted person would do, which is manipulate the source of the narcotics to deliver it to them. So much time and effort is spent in the emergency department trying to figure out, is that back pain real? Is that person lying to me? Am I being manipulated, or should I give them narcotics? Do they need an expensive workup? Do I need to do an MRI? Do I need to do all this shit? If we solve the opioid problem, at least improve it, so much more emergency resource can be devoted to what are actually emergencies. And then the second thing is figuring out how to keep people without emergencies away from the emergency department. Now, how do you do that? First, you have to cut off the source of new addiction, and that is new prescriptions for opioids for bullshit. We need to, as a culture and as a medical establishment, be able to look patients in the eye and say, suck it the fuck up. You have a hangnail, you don't get opioids for that. And we need to be able to look at someone with severe pain and chronic pain and say, okay, this is a problem. We're not going to cut you off from narcotics. We're going to figure out what to do in a multidisciplinary way. And we're going to demand that insurance companies and government payers fund the shit out of it. Because right now, we don't get paid for that stuff. It's so much cheaper and easier just to give somebody a narcotic than it is to unwind addiction, change behaviors and cultural expectations. And the media needs to be a part of this. Our pop culture needs to be a part of this. Just like we stopped showing fucking idiots smoking on TV and in the movies, and that starts to change perceptions. Of course, now they're just vaping. we can do the same thing with narcotics. So it's going to be have to be a ground-up movement from the clinician side and a top-down movement from government to say, you know, we're actually going to put incentives in place to do this correctly. But it's not going to happen overnight. Declaring a state of emergency, look, that sounds great on paper and it actually makes the news. And hey, if we can get the opioid crisis more in the news, hey, even better. If it gets people like us out there talking about it, even better. So for that, I'm going to say, Trump, more power to you, even though you flip-flopped on it. By the way, can I say something?
No.
And again, you're talking to somebody here who literally went on video before the election and was like, if you people elect Donald Trump, I'm moving to Canada. Then I found out Canada's fucking expensive and really cold and people are way too goddamn nice.
And they don't take immigrants.
And they don't like me in particular. And so we said, okay, I said, all right, well, he's our president. We're going to try to do our best to make him be successful. All right? So I've opened my mind to the idea of a President Donald Trump. It took a few weeks.
America!
And Tad was like, don't do it, see? Don't give up your principles. Donald Trump is a dictator. And I'm like, no, I just don't think he's smart enough to be a dictator. But he is very persuasive. So what I'm saying now is, look, if he wants to flip-flop and change his mind on something, that's actually a good characteristic, being able to change your mind when confronted with actual evidence. I wish he'd do that shit about vaccines. I wish he'd do that shit about climate change. But fuck, I'll take what I can get. So the opioid crisis is a national emergency. Fuck it all. Let's do something about it.
I say about it, you know, the people that say, like, he's our president, you got to get behind him. I'll treat him like a president when he starts acting like a president. How about that? If
That's
he does
fair.
something actionable about this, he actually gets some results. He's not promising anything but the promise of results. Show me some results.
The wall's going up.
The
I'll
wall's
believe it when
going
I see
up.
it.
See, to me, Logan, and to many on the side of rationality, the wall going up
Communism, zing!
makes no sense. However, we do need to think about immigration and how it affects our social services and things like that. Look, I think actually liberals should be the most worried about immigration in the sense that you're trying to create a more fair society, and if you have a strain on services, then that's a problem. However, a lot of the jobs that aren't filled currently are being done by immigrants. So you can't just pull the rug out. Now, even Trump, if you look at what he's doing, he says, I'm going to deport 12 million people and I'm going to do this, we're going to build a wall. But then he comes in office and either he can't do it or he realizes, no, I'm just trying to get elected. You know, here's the thing, and again, my liberal colleagues, and I consider myself a colleague of the liberals because I am in fact a liberal, will hate me for saying this, but Trump actually, when they leaked his conversations with the Australian Prime Minister and the Mexican Prime Minister, you could see exactly what a pragmatist he was. He's telling these guys, look, just don't go in public and tell them you're not going to pay for the wall because that's going to fuck me. What I need to do is I need to tell them this, then we'll scale back and we'll negotiate a compromise because that's how he does shit. Now, whether the president should do that shit or should be a man of like unwavering technical integrity like I consider Barack Obama to have been, that's up for the historians to decide. But I think if we're going to try to get shit done, if he goes out and he says, okay, now I'm going to say, fuck it, the opioid crisis is an emergency. Well, if that actually creates an environment where shit gets done, then he's a genius, right? So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one, which is counterintuitive to what I would have said even 6 months ago. I'd have been like, that just came out of my mouth, fuck that.
The problem, though, is he's saying that, you know, law and order is essential for curbing drug addiction, which doesn't work, hasn't worked for the last 30 years, and is not going to start working all of a sudden now because you throw more money at it.
Well, here's a question. I agree with that. I think the war on drugs is fucking the stupidest thing we've ever done. We've wasted lives, money, we've filled up our jails for what? For what end?
And it's also, it's not a partisan thing, because the Clintons were actually some of the ones that, Bill Clinton signed the laws in effect that created mass incarceration.
Yeah, no.
So
all
this is across the aisle.
It's across the aisle. All this is true. But the thing is, I think most, and again, there's some data that some of the people with the highest IQs are actually libertarians because they can take the best aspects of the left and some of the more rational aspects of conservative thought and combine them in an insane package. But most of the intellectual elite, and I consider like people like Sam Harris, et cetera, think decriminalization of drugs is probably the right idea because then you can focus on the actual behavior. Criminalizing that behavior hasn't actually disincentivized it. Now, here's a question though. I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second. Jeff Sessions, Donald Trump comes out and they say, you know what? No, we're gonna have a zero tolerance for this shit. Drugs are bad. Okay, Nancy Reagan was right. Just say no. People who do drugs are bad. Well, by setting a certain tone that there's a level of tolerance for this behavior that's low, maybe that's a good thing for people who are susceptible to that kind of shit. Unfortunately, most people who are going to do drugs aren't susceptible to that.
Do you remember that old ad, the "This is your brain on drugs"? You know, where they put the egg in the skillet. You know what happens if you don't put the egg in the skillet?
Tommy, you going red on
You
me?
get a beautiful Donald Trump.
For the
chicken.
podcast, that's Chinese Donald Trump, who's an egg with beautiful wavy hair. Let's read some comments, man, because people are itching to tell us. How stupid
Chrissy
we are.
says you can't treat every person with pain as a drug seeker nor an addict as a person who doesn't have pain. You know, I'm always like, where are these great drugs? Because when I broke my finger, when I fractured this, they didn't offer me anything. Because I man up and they go, "What's your pain?" I go, "It's like a 2." And then they're like, "All right, get out of here." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you got to fucking lie.
All right,
you gotta tell me.
because I want those good drugs.
You got drug
You know
seek,
what I'm
Tommy.
saying? Yeah.
Cosette
It's like
Westenberger.
Pokemon Go, drug seek.
There's
Cosette
an app for
Westenberger
that.
says Obama was anything but wonderful.
Oh,
nah,
snap.
I disagree. I like Obama. Even Logan likes
Yeah,
Obama,
I
right?
do like Obama.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this, and I'm gonna go on record. And I know people who were relatively close to Obama. He has a degree of integrity. You may disagree with his policies, you may disagree with his politics, but he was a pretty well put together dude overall. And if you disagree with that, then I would argue that maybe we'll agree to disagree. But I think it depends on what press you're reading too, right? So the mainstream press is going to feed you one line, the InfoWars Alex Jones press is going to feed you another, and that's the problem. Is we're all in our own echo chamber of
No, he
whatever.
had a lot of
idea.
integrity for sure, but he was a dirty, dirty communist, you know. So I can't forgive him for that.
And that's fine. That's fine. Suck it the fuck up is brilliant. Stacy Simon Lee, that's my hashtag for how we ought to treat the opioid crisis. Finally, now make it happen. Stop Press Ganey first. Yes. I'm going to say this again. Screw Press Ganey. It's bullshit. They're getting rich on frontline providers suffering. Okay, we should measure the patient experience, but we have to do it right. And these are parasitic opportunists who are profiting from all other people's pain. Make new guidelines for the emergency department. Make it safer for us nurses because they will try to kill us for meds. Yes, agreed. Silent no more. We need, you almost need like bouncers in the ER who will kick your ass if you come in drug seeking. The problem is you're going to then go get heroin. But you know what? At that point, if we can't offer good solutions for rehabilitation, for addiction treatment, et cetera, then there is no other choice. So we need to start offering those solutions. And that costs money, which means we have to reimburse the fuck out of that. Which, here's the liberal in me, the government should pay for that.
No.
Yes.
Stop it.
We got to treat addiction.
Let them die, Z.
Okay, look, right
Free
now,
market, Z. Free
right
market,
now,
baby.
Logan, your tax money is being shat away on bullshit. Let's shit it away on helping people if we can actually do it right.
How about let's not shit it away? How about we let me keep it all? I mean, that sounds great to me.
I like that.
You know?
Logan wants to come to Boston with me in October when
I want to throw tea in the harbor.
He wants to throw tea in the harbor.
How much do the roads cost? Everybody's like, what about the roads? I will pay the tolls, okay?
It's like 2%.
Yeah.
You people. What do you mean, you people? We as healthcare providers, says Kendra Mason, have to accept that if a patient says their pain is 10 out of 10, it's 10 out of 10. Well, of course, because pain is subjective, and that's why it's not a fucking vital sign. Pain, a vital sign is something you measure. You don't ask a patient, hey, what the fuck is your blood pressure? Oh, I think it's like 190 over something. I want a nipride drip, which, by the way, has skyrocketed in price for unclear reasons. Yeah, what's your pulse? I don't know, pi? Is pi an answer? Fuck. Yeah, well, what's your pain scale? It's a 9 out of 10. So you're on fire, basically. Yeah, that's what it feels like. And can I have a sandwich too? Fuck that shit. That's why our frontline providers hate their lives. That's why emergency physicians have one of the highest rates of burnout and emergency nurses get punched and hit and assaulted. Fuck it. Scott Weingart, who's an emergency department doc, that's why we call this TribeTalk so I can curse. Scott Weingart, who's a friend, he's a luminary, he does a podcast called MCRIT. He's a critical care doc who works in the emergency department, so he does emergency critical care. He was recently on Patty Barrett's podcast, which is a great one called The Doctor Paradox. I was on it, that's why it was great. I'm making podcasts great again, people. And he basically nailed it. He's like, this is why I consider emergency medicine to be a fruitless, thankless, miserable life. It's because A, the opioid crisis has turned us into suspicious, cover your ass, basically robots, because we can't function any other way because 40% of our traffic is drug seekers, right? Who are addicted to drugs. They have a disease now that we partially created. The second piece is the Press-Ganey measurement industrial complex, which turns us into click monkeys to please, overlords that have nothing, never fucking touched a patient, right? And again, I don't mean to take a shit on all administrators. I'm just saying that came from above, right? CMS and the overlords in government have set it up. I feel like Alex Jones right now on Infowars have set it up to
Start crying, Z.
for us to fucking. It's terrible.
Intergalactic pedophiles are raping America.
Damn straight.
He believes that.
What does Tad think?
You know what? Tammy says, I really liked you until today, but now I think you're pretty disgusting. You know what, Tammy? You're fired. Get the fuck out of here.
This is what I fucking hate about people these days. Nobody is tolerant of even having an open discussion about shit. So people think you're disgusting if I'll say, you know what, I don't hate Trump as much as I ought to being a liberal. Well then, fuck. Why? Well, because he's very persuasive and he might use his thing as a bully pulpit. Great. Do I think he's smart on climate change? No, he's fucking crazy. Ooh. Do I think he's a science denier? Yeah, he's insane. All these things are true, but if we can't even have a conversation without people saying, I don't like you anymore.
Hey, Z.
Then fuck off. Yeah, what?
Crystal says, I lost a sister and my mother from OD. If they had not been given excuses for their addiction, i.e. a disease, maybe they would still be here. Addicts aren't interested in treatment while they're high. It just doesn't happen.
This is Logan's line of thinking. He loves this. It's a disease.
Well, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about that because I want to respectfully address this topic.
Also, you're saying fuck too much.
I say fuck too much? Someone
too
said
much.
that? What did you throw at me, you asshole?
It was a pen. It was one of your pens.
This is can we get an inset cam on that, please?
Boom!
This is Slidey funnier than placebo.
Oh, they can finally see it now.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
It's a typo that no one caught until I caught it.
Let's
someone
talk-
caught it and sent it to me.
Let's talk about sad Vader's drug addiction.
Yeah, so let's say Vader gets Percocet for his injuries on Mustafar. He had a bunch of Dilaudid in the hospital, and we were told all the Imperial probe droids that treated Vader when he was chopped up on Mustafar when the Emperor picked him up, said they were taught by pharma and by their pain societies that that narcotics used for real pain in people without a history of addiction, for example, Anakin Skywalker, aka Vader, whose only addiction was cutting motherfuckers up, it would not lead to addiction. Okay, so they were trained to do this. They gave him a shit ton of narcotics. He had a lot of pain. He was burned over 90% of his body, right? He leaves. The pain never really gets better because he's still on narcotics and he ends up with hyperalgia, plus he's hella dark side, plus he killed his wife. There's all kinds of emotional pain that he's now narcotizing with escalating doses of OxyContin. He's now grinding it up and snorting it. He's doctor shopping around the galaxy, right? Cut to Vader. Look at this fucker, man. He is sad. He's doctor shopping around the galaxy, and then people are telling him that it was all a choice. Well, all right. Maybe the first time he tried to attack Obi-Wan on Mustafar, that was a choice, and it was a bad choice. Then it was a choice to continue using the narcotics. But then, at some point, that choice becomes a groove in your brain that is a disease, that is addiction. And you're right, addicts don't want to change when they're in the grips of addiction. No more than a CHFer's lungs want to not be filled with fluid. They fill with fluid because that is the disease. So the question is, all right, and if you talk to addicts who've recovered, most of them will tell you this. Yes, I made some bad choices, but then it became something well beyond any sense of control that I had, and it took X, Y, and Z to get me out of it. And part of that is having support, and part of that is being less judgmental. Now, enabling addicts is a very different thing, and this is something that the entire medical profession can sometimes be guilty of. But I would say that you can have tough love, you can actually hold people accountable while still having a disease model for addiction. So I think where folks like Logan maybe feel we drop the ball is we don't hold people accountable for the decisions. People should be held accountable, but we should also understand when something functions within a disease model. And addiction is some hybrid of both. Right?
Everybody always wants to ask about weed when we have these conversations about pain. You know, I always found that weed just made me forget I had pain. It wasn't that it was like curing the pain. I just was like,
I just get hungry and paranoid. That's it.
It's every day.
Yeah, it's every day. That's just my daily routine. Well, so the thing about marijuana is we just haven't studied it enough. Like there are some few small trials here and there, but since it's Schedule 1, you can't study it. My argument is study marijuana, study psychedelics, study MDMA for their therapeutic uses, which may be existent or they may be inexistent. But until you study it, don't tell me as a doctor to prescribe medical marijuana. Just legalize it already and let people try it if they think they want to do it. And you believe me, once you legalize it, it's already happened in Colorado, California, Nevada. People are going to come up with different strains that have lower psychoactive components, higher cannabinoid components, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so they're going to come up with stuff that works for people, even in the absence of the medical industrial complex doing anything about it. Do not try to tell me that, cannabinoid oil cures cancer or does any of this shit, because that's bullshit. Ooh. If it helps with your anxiety, your pain, your nausea, great, more power to you, use it.
Jamie says, how do we hold them accountable without making them feel judged? I say we judge the shit out of people. Yeah, it works. All right?
It does. Tom judges me all the time.
Shame and judge work. Yeah, I do.
So here's the thing. If your healthcare provider judges you, and this has been shown with obesity, you're less likely to go to that person. You're less likely to be receptive to
I don't necessarily mean providers. I just mean society.
Yeah, no, society can set, and this is something that actually Trump might have done. He's saying, look, this thing's a crisis. So he, in essence, what he said is, this is an emergency. All right? There he is. This is an emergency. Therefore, like any natural disaster, this is beyond the scope of human control, and we need to now intervene to ameliorate the damage. So in a way, Trump is saying, look, you have a disease, this is a crisis. Now, if it were a shooting spree where a bunch of people were killing people, he could also declare it a national emergency, but there's something very different about it. Society can still say, no, abusing drugs is a bad thing that you should be ashamed of, right? Because we don't want to give people a pass to do this stuff, because part of the way the elephant and the rider work is the elephant does respond to things like disgust, to what path the elephant and the rider are walking on, and how the influence of society and our conditioning conditions the elephant. I never touched anything, alcohol, drugs, nothing, cigarettes in high school, because I was fucking severely conditioned by Nancy Reagan's 80s drugs are bad, okay? It actually worked on me because I was in a place mentally where I actually trusted authority figures. And if they said something was bad, I listened. Now, there are a lot of people who don't have that physiology at that age, and they're going to rebel against it and do the opposite. So again, even with this, there isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of approach that's going to work. As we've seen, it's failed. Just like there's no one recovery path that works for addicts, right? You have to kind of identify it, which means time, getting to know the patient, spending time with them. Instead, we're spending time going click, 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 press Gainey, click, 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 pain scale. No, we need to spend time talking and understanding our patients, and we need the resources to do that, which means CMS and the government entities that are really setting prices ultimately in their Politburo way need to help us do that correctly in a way that incentivizes proper outcomes. What do we got?
By the way, I have a new metaphor. The giant chicken and the toupee.
Oh, it's amazing. That is a beautiful chicken. Have to wonder who was pulling his strings and telling him what to say and how to act for their own financial gain. Seeing a lot of liberals becoming millionaires under Obamacare. Tina Monsewitz. I think we're still hooked on the politics of me saying Obama had integrity.
No one tells Trump what to do.
Yeah, no one tells Trump what to do, that's right. Except for Ivanka.
Yes.
Obama intentionally tried to take it easy so he wouldn't make any mistakes. Being the first black president, it seems he didn't want to do anything wrong that people could hold over his head and associate. Not that panned out, of course, but that's truly how it seems. Andy Nelson. I don't know, I think it panned out pretty good. I don't think his reputation is really that harmed, except among, extreme conservatives. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I remember when I went through DARE in 5th grade.
Oh, you did the
and
DARE?
I was like, I'm never doing drugs.
Yep.
And then somebody offered me a joint at a party when I was 15. And I was like, I'm totally doing drugs right now.
I'm actually surprised that you were affected by DARE because you're very anti-authority.
Yeah, but when you're 12, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, drugs are so bad.
That's true.
I don't want to be bad. I'm a good boy.
Georgette Praisberg says, I can't believe you watch Alex Jones. I didn't say I watched Alex Jones.
No,
although
Alex Jones is insane.
He's insane, yeah. He's like David Avocado Wolfe insane, like really off the rails. Got to be so politically correct these days. That's disgusting. Rebecca Roberts, I agree wholeheartedly. The one hardcore stance I take is stop being so politically correct. If you can't say stuff, how the hell are you supposed to talk about it?
My wife says, Danielle Heinberg says, when babies come back from surgery, they get IV or rectal Tylenol, if anything. Maybe one dose of morphine if it was a major surgery. If they can suck it up, then adults can too. I agree with that.
Totally. By the way, babies are the biggest drug seekers in the world.
Goddamn babies.
Little punks.
My baby, let me tell you, my baby, he loves opioids.
He loves opioids. He's always crying. He's like,
Yep. He's like, where's my opioids?
Actually, that is one of my favorite drug seeker characteristics is the crocodile tears. Like, you can just turn them on. Oh my God. And then the minute the prescription pad is in hand or the Epic is being typed, they're like, it's like the tears suck back up into the little fake ducts that they came out. And again, I don't say this to judge the person, I say this to judge the behavior. This is a manifestation of the disease of addiction, and it is rational. If you're trying to score drugs, you behave that way. And they know exactly, these people are not dumb. They know exactly how to manipulate to get the drugs they want.
Pammy says, Z, you're so right. In the 70s and 80s, I believed if you smoked one joint the next day, you'd move on to being a crack whore. Yeah.
It's true, right? It was the gateway.
Do you know who Len Bias was?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so Len Bias was, a phenom. He was probably going to be on par with Michael Jordan, and he died after, allegedly the story is he took cocaine one time. No. He used to party and do coke in college, and he had a heart condition. So those two things intermix, and then
But see, that story,
no more Len Bias.
I'll be honest, I've never tried cocaine, and that story conditioned my elephant probably to be like, you know what? You could do coke once and die, bro.
Yeah.
And maybe we need more of that kind of, even if it's false, we need more conditioning.
Well, I had the same thing, and then the first time I did cocaine, I was like, this shit is amazing.
Oh my God.
It's a hell of a drug.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug. Yeah, I have no desire to do that. I think part of the thing with me and drugs was when I was experimenting and dabbling in drugs back in the day was I wanted a mind-expanding experience. I didn't want just to feel good because actually I felt okay in life in general. It was a struggle and there were days where you're depressed, but I didn't want to numb that. I wanted to see, is there something about the human experience that I'm missing that this drug will provide? Things like LSD, psilocybin, mushrooms, MDMA, they provided those experiences, truly like peak transcendent experiences where you can experience that. But would I recommend everyone do them? No.
Stop endorsing drugs, then.
Yeah, because they have serious downsides. That's the problem. Now, used in therapeutic settings with a counselor, that's what they're testing now for things like PTSD, depression, et cetera. Maybe they'll be useful. And so there's some preliminary data to suggest they might be.
Zeke, do you think the drug war is racist?
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. It's going to target inner city folks. It's going to target people who are poor disproportionately, and it has. So I would be, and listen, here's the thing about me. I'm fairly moderate on this point. I would say, look, if that actually cleared up the problem somehow, like let's say it was a problem associated with poor people or a particular ethnic group, and we clear it up through incarceration and it works, great. It doesn't work. You can incarcerate everybody who's poor, everybody who's black, everybody who's Latino. You're not going to solve the drug problem because it is not something that's solvable through those means. Now, you can still condition society to understand that that behavior is going to be bad. And that may be very good, especially with children. I heard a story a girl who fell asleep on her legs when she was high and lost her legs. It made me quit. Carrie Bennett. So we've all heard stories like that, right? This guy got so high that he forgot that he was sleeping on his arm and now he doesn't have an arm. And those stories are almost assuredly apocryphal.
Oh, my favorite one was I heard a story about a kid in my high school who did too much LSD and then permanently thought he was a banana. Like he couldn't stop thinking he was a banana for the rest of his life.
Logan, show me the real banana. There he is. Let's see here. Ketamine infusions are becoming standard treatment modality for CRPS, chronic regional pain syndrome, says Jen King. Yes, and so again, we're using drugs that used to be drugs of abuse or drugs of sedation in new ways, and we have to study them, and I'm all for that.
Or what about, do you know about Ibogaine for opioid withdrawal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know Tim Ferriss and others have talked about Ibogaine and other serious, they're not even hallucinogenics, they're really,
the class of drugs is called entheogen.
entheogen, that's right, like God drugs, right? Like where you
They're plant medicines in the shamanic cultures, but they're more on the category of a sort of a deliriant than a hallucinogen.
Yeah.
Or at least Ibogaine is.
Yeah. Well, we got to get somebody on the show to talk about some of those experiences because they are fascinating when you hear people talk about them. The question is, can you have a transformative, life-altering, permanent, for the better experience, having a shamanic ritual with ayahuasca, say, and has that happen? Does it consistently happen, or is there too much risk in the process? And I think that's something that needs to be studied because, hey, didn't we turn off our AC? Why is it still going?
I got it.
All right, Tom's on it.
Tom's on it. Tom Cam.
Tom, catnip, Carrie Bennett. Thoughts on Vivitrol? Not yet, Jennifer Fox, stay tuned.
By the way, what do you feel about Suboxone?
Suboxone, we've talked about this before. Are we subbing one addiction for another? They used to say that about methadone. My feeling is if you can get people out of the drug-seeking pattern, if you can get people out of the heroin space and the injection space, then you've done a good thing, even if you're subbing one, dependency for another.
Apparently, the withdrawals are much harder on Suboxone than they are on just going straight off a regular.
You know a lot about drugs, Tom.
Yeah,
Harper.
yeah, I do drugs.
You know a lot about drugs, but not a lot about our AC unit because you turned off the wrong one. Damn it. I have to do it myself. You know what? Millennials. Can anyone actually hear their air conditioner? I can't. They should leave it on. Amber Bohannon. Oh, it's only 110 outside, man. It's like we suffer for our craft. It bumps up sometimes here to 85 degrees in here, and we're like, okay, T-Pack, I think it's time to call the code because we're about to code.
You guys do so well if you stay out of politics. Listen up, we're never going to stay out of politics, all right? Politics are a part of life.
And we love Trump. So,
Logan loves Trump. I'm an
not love Trump.
anarcho-capitalist. Z's a bleeding heart, pinko commie liberal.
Communist.
So we got all the bases covered here to talk politics in a nonpartisan fashion.
And
Tad is an anarchist.
Tad's a transsexual anarchist.
Yes. He's like, I am who I am, and that's all that I am. I'm Tad, the EMS man. So by the way, the people who keep saying we should stay out of politics, no, we're not going to. If we educated motherfucking professionals on Facebook can't talk politics in a way that is less judgy and crazy than the news or TV, if we can't have a conversation that's respectful with each other, then who the fuck are we?
I mean,
as
why
people?
can't we talk politics? Because it's the new religion.
It's a new religion.
You know what I mean? Like,
let's
Your
talk religion.
microaggressions,
Let's
Tom.
talk religion. You want to really hurt people?
Well,
I'll do that right now.
If you think about politics as religion, which they're becoming,
Yep.
I mean, think about something like on liberalism. What is white privilege but some version of original sin for the liberals,
Here we go.
Being woke is their ultimate enlightenment, you know what I mean?
I think this is where we end the podcast because I will go down this K-hole with you.
don't go down, Izzy.
Yeah, I'll go down the K-hole.
Don't do it.
All right, guys. So here's the thing. Drugs are bad, okay? Hit share on this podcast, even if you don't like our politics, because our politics are all over the spectrum. So you got to like some of it, and you got to hate some of it, and that's the nature of it. We as healthcare professionals need to lead the charge into the brave new world of fixing the opioid crisis, and we're going to, and we're going to keep talking about it. We don't have all the answers, but we can start to get there. So let us support those who are trying to make it better. And I don't know, Tom Heineber, what do you think?
Share this or Tad dies.
Don't make me do it. You know how we'll kill Tad? Carfentanil. We'll coat him with highly potent fentanyl, and he'll become anoxic, and we won't have enough Narcan to revive him. And that's how Tad's going out because he likes to party. Okay. Go, 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 go.
No.
I like to party.